Distinguished heads of state, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it is my pleasure to welcome you all at the meeting of Outreach BRICS Plus format. This extended format has proved valuable and offers the possibility for a direct and open dialogue between members of the grouping with our friends and partners. Let me remind you that in the past year, heads of many African countries and heads of key regional organizations were invited to the meeting in Johannesburg. This time, the Russian chairship has invited Russian closest neighbors, friendly states with whom we share a common history of living in one state. This meeting is equally attended by heads of states showing interest for establishing a closer partnership with BRICS and even considering a possibility of future membership in the BRICS grouping, as well as countries currently presiding in leading multilateral bodies. It means that European, Asian, African and Latin American states are currently sitting at one table. In line with the proposed agenda, we are about to consider the topics of particular interest for international community, including sustainable development, eradication of poverty, adjustment to climate change, exchange of technologies and knowledge, as well as fight against terrorism and cross-border crime. Naturally, we will pay particular attention to the issues of peaceful settlement of conflicts, and primarily we will have a serious conversation on the escalation in the Middle East. It is of extreme importance for BRICS member states to discuss these topics with like-minded states from Global South and East. All our states share similar aspirations, values and vision of a new democratic world order, reflecting the entire cultural and civilizational diversity. We are convinced that such a world order should be based on universal principles of respect of legitimate interests and sovereign choice of states and people, respect of international law, as well as willingness for mutually beneficial and fair cooperation. Transition to a just world order is not an easy process. It is being hindered by forces who are used to think and act in the spirit of dominance over everyone and anything, under the guise of a rules-based order that is being imposed upon the world. We see attempts to contain growing rivals and independent development of African, Asian and Latin American countries free of anyone's control. They use illegitimate unilateral sanctions, blunt protectionism, manipulations with currency and stock markets, interference into internal affairs under the motto of care for democracy and human rights and fight against climate change. That's what they use. These, let's be frank, unhealthy methods and attitudes cause both new conflicts and escalate the existing tensions, which undermines regional and global strategic stability, violates principles of equal and indivisible security, and incites interstate and sectarian conflicts. One of examples is Ukraine, that has been and continues to be used for creating critical security threats for Russia, while ignoring our vital interests and legitimate concerns at infringement on the rights of Russian-speaking people. Presently, they no longer make a secret of their goal, namely to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia. Let me say frankly, those are illusory calculations that can only be made by those who don't know the Russian history and don't take into consideration the unity, fortitude and cohesion of its people that had been forged throughout centuries. But as we agreed, the main topic of our deliberation will be the situation in the Middle East. It is of equal concern. And here it is an example of what I have mentioned before. It is an escalation of a protracted conflict that we haven't been able to settle for decades. Another wave of Israeli-Palestinian confrontation has probably become one of the bloodiest in a long series of clashes between Arabs and Israelis. The clashes in the Gaza Strip have already claimed lives of more than 30,000 people, most of them civilians. But at the same time, let me stress, we have always opposed any manifestations of terrorism. The hostilities that broke out in the Gaza Strip a year ago now spread over to Lebanon. Other countries of the region have been affected. The degree of confrontation between Israel and Iran has grown sharply. It resembles a chain reaction and pushes the entire Middle East region to the abyss of a full-fledged war. The humanitarian situation is rapidly degrading. The number of refugees and internally displaced persons has already exceeded 1.5 million people. A colossal damage has been inflicted on infrastructure, residential houses, schools, hospitals, social facilities. These devastations are ongoing. Obviously, Russia has many questions, many important and acute questions, and issues that we have to settle for ourselves. That's what we are doing, and that's what we will continue to do. But at the same time, we have always sought to make our tangible contribution to civilization in the Middle East. Therefore, from the very beginning of escalations, together with BRICS member states and other partners, we have actively joined the efforts to settle the conflict. As you remember, we even held an extraordinary video summit of our group in November 2023. Obviously, it is an urgent task to launch a comprehensive political process in order to resolve the Middle East issue in its complexity. We need to make sure the violence is stopped and crucial assistance is provided to those affected, as well as sufferings are alleviated. The parties need to reach a settlement on the generally recognized international legal framework, explicitly envisaging creation of an independent Palestinian state coexisting peacefully with Israel. Rectification of historical injustice against Palestinian people can give a guarantee of peace in the Middle East.
Until this issue is solved, the vicious circle of violence will not be broken. People will continue to live in the atmosphere of permanent crisis with inevitable recurrence of mass violence. I would like to reiterate once again that the key requirement to restoring stability on the Palestinian territories is the realization of the two-state formula endorsed by the resolutions of the Security Council and the UN General Assembly. As for the assessment of the overall situation in the world, let me emphasize that the states represented here today dispose of truly great opportunities and resources, share high profile on the world stage, and use all of that actively to truly further ensure global security and promote sustainable development processes in the world. Most of our countries have proposed in this context their very useful initiatives. On our part, Russia has put forward an idea of building an equal and indivisible security system in Eurasia on an inclusive and non-discriminatory basis. The idea is to join efforts in order to effectively ensure true stability and peaceful coexistence of all states and people on the continent. And of course, it is quite symbolic that today's meeting is taking place on the United Nations Day. It was on the 24th of October, 1945, that the UN Charter came into power, the principles of which, for over 8 decades, have been a cornerstone of interstate relations and international law. This universal organization should continue playing a central role in sustaining peace and security, assisting in steady progressive growth. Meanwhile, to ensure the effective functioning in the future of the UN, we believe it is important to adapt its structures to the realities of the 21st century. Expand the representation in Security Council and other key international bodies of countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America, including those whose leaders are present in this hall today. It is high time we reformed UN institutes of development and global financial structures. The way of developing countries in the world economy has changed drastically over the last decades. Yet, in particular, this was not reflected properly in the governance systems of the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and other multilateral banks of development. Founding fathers of the United Nations organization saw its purpose in being the center for harmonizing the actions of the nations, because it is only collectively and in agreement we can efficiently respond to global threats and challenges, tackling such threats as combating terrorism, illegal drug circulation, corruption, organized crime, including criminal use of ICTs, and of course, ensure steady economic growth for the welfare of global development and prosperity. It is obvious that the next wave of global economic rise is formed exactly in the countries of the global majority, which is why it's high time we discuss the idea of creating our own platform to explore the potential of our growing economies. Its goal is to increase the investment flows to the countries of BRICS, Global South and East, as well as focusing on investments into great infrastructure and technological projects. It's important to build alternative, secure, multilateral financial mechanisms and manufacturing logistic chains free of any dictate, as well as ensuring exchange of technologies and best practices, develop and increase capacity of new international transport corridors. Russia, together with our partners, is working on such important global routes as North-South, Northern Sea Route, and we invite all the interested parties to collaborate with us. As we all well know, an important part on the Sustainable Development Agenda is climate. Understandably, the International Climate Agenda should be aimed at working out practical solutions to the issue of global warming. In this context, it's especially important to provide access for the countries of Global South and East to financing and technologies to help them adapt to climate change. Let me point out, Russia tries actively to participate in the global climate process. Our country plays one of the leading roles in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and our energy mix is one of the greenest in the world. Share of ecologically clean generations of gas, nuclear, and hydro generation accounts for 85%. Russian territory is home to over 20% of world forests, absorb the greenhouse gases and help slow down the global warming. Russia also contributes greatly to ensuring world food and energy security. Only over the last year, we've sent over 100 million tons of produce for export. We've gained a leading position in providing grains and energy sources on the market. Within BRICS, we've initiated the grain exchange. We believe that this mechanism will contribute to establishing clear regulations of agricultural trade resistant to external risks, both with the members of these organizations and with our other partners. In conclusion, let me emphasize once again that Russia, as well as other BRICS states, is open to joint work with countries of the Global South and East to promote an inclusive and sustainable developments toward building a better world, a world that takes into account opinions and interests of each people, respects their right to sovereign development, their originality, recognizes the absolute value of all the cultures, traditions, and religions with no exception. I believe that today's discussion will be constructive and substantial, will contribute to solving relevant issues both on the regional and global agenda. I thank you for your attention, and I would like to give the floor to the head of the Chinese delegation, Xi Jinping. Thank you.
Your Excellency, President Vladimir Putin, colleagues, I would like to thank President Putin and the Russian government for putting together this BRICS Plus dialogue, and warmly welcome all the leaders joining us today. It is a great pleasure to see old and new friends in Kazan. The collective rise of the Global South is a distinctive feature of the great transformation across the world. Global South countries marching together toward modernization is monumental in world history and unprecedented in human civilization. At the same time, peace and development still faces severe challenges, and the road to prosperity for the Global South will not be straight. Standing at the forefront of the Global South, we should use our collective wisdom and strength and stand up to our responsibility for building a community with a shared future for mankind. We should uphold peace and strive for common security. We should come forward together to form a stabilizing force for peace. We should strengthen global security governance and explore solutions to address both symptoms and roots of hotspot issues. Many parties have warmly responded to my global security initiative. And under the initiative, we have made prominent progress in maintaining regional stability and in many other areas. China and Brazil jointly issued the 6-point consensus and launched the Group of Friends for Peace on the Ukraine crisis, together with other Global South countries. We should promote early de-escalation to pave the way for political settlement. Last July, Palestinian factions reconciled with each other in Beijing, marking a key step towards peace in the Middle East. We should continue to promote comprehensive ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and revive the two-state solution. We must stop the flames of war from spreading in Lebanon and end the miserable sufferings in Palestine and Lebanon. We should reinvigorate development and strive for common prosperity. The Global South emerges for development and prospers through development. We should make ourselves the main driving force for common development. We should play an active and leading role in the global economic governance reform and make development the core of international economic and trade agenda. Since its introduction 3 years ago, the Global Development Initiative has helped make available nearly $20 billion of development fund and launched more than 1,100 projects. And recently, the Global Alliance on Artificial Intelligence for Industry and Manufacturing Center of Excellence has been established in Shanghai. China will also build a World Smart Customs Community Portal and the BRICS Customs Center of Excellence. We welcome active participation by all countries. We should promote together development of all civilizations and strive for harmony among them. Diversity of civilization is the innate quality of the world. We should be advocates for exchanges among civilizations. We should enhance communication and dialogue and support each other in taking the path to modernization suited to our respective national conditions. The Global Civilization Initiative I proposed is exactly for the purpose of building a garden of world civilizations in which we can share and admire the beauty of each civilization. China will coordinate with others to form a Global South think tanks alliance to promote people-to-people exchanges and experience sharing in governance. Colleagues, the third plenary session of the 20th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China made strategic plans for further deepening reform to advance Chinese modernization. This will provide more opportunities for the world. Last month, we held in Beijing a successful summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation and announced 10 partnership actions for China and Africa to jointly advance modernization. This will instill new energy for the Global South on its way toward modernization. No matter how the international landscape evolves, we in China will always keep the Global South in our hearts and maintain our roots in the Global South. We support more Global South countries in joining the cause of BRICS as full members, partner countries, or in the BRICS Plus format, so that we can combine the great strength of the Global South to build together a community with a shared future for mankind. I thank President Putin for all the preparations for the summit, and I congratulate on the successful convention of this summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. China has been doing a lot to promote the BRICS development and, by and large, to improve the global situation, investing a lot of resources in administrative and financial terms. So many thanks to you. And now I'd like to yield to our Egyptian friends. Over to you, President Sisi.
شكرا فخامة الرئيس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فخامة الرئيس فلاديمير بوتين رئيس روسيا للتحرير، أصحاب الجلالة والفخامة، رؤساء الدول والحكومات، الحضور الكريم.
And governments, honorable participants, at the outset I express anew my appreciation to His Excellency Vladimir Putin for his invitation to today's meeting under BRICS Plus. I also welcome the presidents of states and governments participating in the meeting that asserts the growing significance of BRICS groupings, for it is established on mutual cooperation and respect among states, and also reflects the grouping's eagerness on effective consultation and coordination intensification with the friendly and influential states from outside the BRICS in order to achieve our common interests. Ladies and gentlemen, today's meeting comes at a critical international circumstance simmering with compounded crises and challenges. It witnesses a threat to the credibility of the multilateral international order that is overshadowed with protectionist tendencies and unilateral policies. Egypt, amid such bewilderment, believes it is essential for the developing countries to come together and reinforce South-South cooperation as one major medium for encountering the current challenges. Egypt has always been at the forefront of nations who were keen to bolstering cooperation among developing countries, in addition to its assiduous endeavor to reinforcing the interests and the priorities of the South states in various international fora. In this regard, we cannot discuss the current international crises and challenges without discussing the crisis crisis witnessed by the Middle East region, given the continuous Israeli war for more than a year against the sons of the Palestinian people besieged in Gaza Strip, and who are surrounded by all forms of murder and intimidation, as well as the spiral aggression in the Lebanese territories, which is the greatest evidence to what have our world and the international world become today, as they are void of principles and apply double standards. Moreover, the absence of accountability and justice in face of the violations committed to the international instruments and the rules of the international and the humanitarian law, which resulted in unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe, as well as the continuity and the expansion of war. They are all but testimonies posing concerted international efforts to bring the serious regional escalation to a halt and preclude the region from being grabbed into an all-out war, especially that the regional conflicts are spiral, encompassing several countries. Such conflicts are extended to adversely affect the maritime traffic in Eden Gulf and the Red Sea, as well as the international trade and the stability of the global supply chain. Majesties and Excellencies, Egypt values the BRICS Plus as a platform fostering cooperation, consultation among the BRICS groupings and the South countries. In this framework, I would like to note the following points. First, it is necessary to maximize benefit from multilateral development banks to be more capable to furthering the developing countries' access to concessional financing, including access to climate financing. We emphasize the key role of the new development bank and the Asian Bank for Infrastructure Investment for providing the required concessional financing to the developing countries to undertake developmental projects in multiple sectors. Second, it is essential to take advantage of BRICS Plus meetings to boost South-South cooperation and step up shared experiences in various fronts, further to the implementation of joint projects attaining mutual benefit. In this context, I would like to underline Egypt's readiness to pursuing its efforts for undertaking numerous projects of technical cooperation and capacity building with interested states. Third, it is important to continue cooperation and consultation among the developing countries to safeguard maintaining the effectiveness of the multilateral international system and to collectively contend with the attempts of prescribing unilateral and individual policies impairing the interests of our countries. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion of my statement, I confirm to you Egypt's full commitment to fostering joint action and common cooperation among the BRICS groupings and the South states for attaining our common goals and our population's aspirations to a better tomorrow. Thank you. Peace be upon you, and may Allah's mercy and blessings shower you.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, Egypt has been actively working as a full-fledged BRICS member, and we count on your country's considerable contribution to the work of the organization. Now I give the floor to Secretary General of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. Over to you.
Your Excellency Vladimir Putin, President of the Russian Federation, Excellencies, Head of State and Government, distinguished delegation members, I would like to thank His Excellency President Vladimir Putin for covering this important gathering that brings together BRICS members and countries from the Global South. This deliberation with emerging economies and developing countries allows us to reflect on ways to enhance South-South cooperation and exchange of views on how to advance our shared objectives and visions to accelerate development in our countries and advance measures to reform global governance. Mr. President, Excellencies, as countries of the Global South, we have historic responsibility and opportunity to pool our resources together, align our positions, and work towards confronting the many crises the world is facing. We can contribute to the reduction of conflicts devastating many countries in several regions and contribute to alleviating human suffering. We should endeavor to achieve sustainable development goals by mobilizing development finance and alleviating the heavy debt burden on our economies. Predictable, transparent, and expedited debt restructuring remains achievable and will contribute to sustainable development. Access to critical concessional finance unconstrained by socially burdensome conditionality respects policy autonomy for developing countries and facilitates necessary economic reform. Mr. President, as we all know, the influence of emerging market and developing countries in global affairs is growing. It is therefore incumbent on us to strengthen our solidarity and partnership to speak in common voice and leverage the process of global governance reform. Ethiopia believes that the reform of the multilateral economic and financial institutions should be at the top of the priorities of our cooperation. We must work hand in hand towards democratizing the decision-making process by expanding the representation of the Global South, particularly Africa, in the governance of the global economic institution. We should also work towards reviewing the quota system to reflect the current economic status of developing member countries. The Global South should strive to capture the momentum for change to drive action toward new financing facilities for development. Mr. President, Excellencies, cooperation among countries of the Global South has the potential to increase the productivity capacity of developing countries. We must therefore work hard to increase trade, flow of investment, development finance, and tourism. The market opportunities that come with the significant population size, rapid growth in connectivity and technological advancement make the intra-global South trade the engine of global trade. We must therefore work towards removing trade barriers to harness the potential. Extending tariff and quota-free market access to LDCs will be essential for the expansion of trading opportunities. Mr. President, Ethiopia is greatly concerned with the escalation of the conflict in Gaza and Lebanon, which is causing huge suffering of civilians with dire humanitarian consequences. De-escalating the expanding regional crisis and tension in the broader Middle East is necessary. We call for immediate ceasefire and dialogue to end the conflict. In all cases, civilians must be protected. All key regional actors need to exercise utmost restraint and choose a path of dialogue and peaceful resolution of disputes. The two-state solution for Palestinian and the State of Israel coexisting peacefully in line with the relevant UN Security Council resolution provides the basis for durable peace in this region. Mr. President, in conclusion, Ethiopia believes that South-South cooperation has the potential to make meaningful contribution to addressing global challenge of maintenance of peace and security, alleviation of poverty, promoting development, and mitigating the effects of climate change. I therefore would like to reiterate my country's commitment to the consolidation of BRICS engagement with emerging markets and developing countries based on equality, solidarity, and mutual respect. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Ethiopia. Ethiopia has been actively engaging in BRICS, and I'm sure, considering the rates of development of your country, considering its growth and role both in Africa and worldwide, it will be continuing contributing to our grouping. Thank you. Now the floor is given to the President of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
In the name of God, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Your Excellency, Mr. Vladimir Putin, distinguished leaders of the world, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that through this collaborative and interactive forum, and based on the inspiring theme of this summit, BRICS and the Global South, co-constructing a better world, we can take a significant step towards establishing a better system and fairer relations based on collective satisfaction. This coalition building and striving for constructive and friendly relations are part of today's reality and the desire of many countries and international actors to break free from unilateralism. The foundations of unilateral equations and a balance based on unipolar hegemony are extremely shaky and wavering. Many international structures and mechanisms stemming from this approach, such as the UN Security Council, the International Monetary Fund, human rights institutions, and other examples, have lost their effective and constructive functionality due to politicization and the influence of Western governments. That is why, since its inception, this BRICS group, with its lofty and popular goals, has been able to become a successful model of cooperation and convergence among countries on the regional and international stage. This summit embodies the fact that building a better world is not possible alone. In today's interconnected world, joint will and action are necessary for fundamental change that requires reforming the current system and creating a more balanced order based on justice and satisfaction. In other words, a better world would be a place where there is no trace of imposed sanctions, acts of aggression, war, conquest, or genocide, where multilateralism prevails over unilateralism, the majority over the minority, equality over discrimination, transparency over deception, democracy over authoritarianism, and dialogue over war. Over the past year, our world has faced numerous events and many components of peace and security, particularly in the West Asian region, have been either weakened or threatened. The Zionist regime, disregarding international norms, has trampled on many of the red lines of governments around the world, and unchivalry enough has created, as ruthlessly as we can imagine, a new wave of violence and terror. The flames of war still rage hot in the Gaza Strip and Lebanese cities, and international institutions and bodies, primarily the UN Security Council, as the driving force for international peace and security, lack the necessary capacity to extinguish the fire of this crisis. Moreover, the unwavering support of Western governments, led by the United States for the Zionist regime, has made achieving peace and halting the war out of reach. The Islamic Republic of Iran believes that regional and international crises cannot be resolved without joint efforts. Therefore, within the framework of our principled policies, we have always endeavored to create smart and efficient networks of trade relations and to make every effort to strengthen international cooperation and deepen the elements of friendship among countries. This is despite the fact that, contrary to all international norms and human rights, the imposition of unilateral sanctions has challenged international norms and human rights, and many development processes have faced numerous challenges due to coercive measures and political malice, hindering the steady movement towards a secure and developed world. Therefore, BRICS and BRICS Plus must design and implement a transparent, fair, inclusive, non-discriminatory and rules-based mechanism for multilateral trade, with a special focus on the Global South and developing and least developed countries. Illegal sanctions have devastating effects on international relations and prevent countries from accessing their financial resources, hindering their effective role in international cooperation processes, such as combating the adverse effects of climate change, global warming, environmental degradation, and providing humanitarian aid. Many countries that are members or associated with the BRICS have dynamic and developing economies. This capacity carries valuable opportunities that, with attention and efforts to create deep economic and commercial bonds, can bring abundant, ample, inclusive benefits. The use of national currencies for trade, new banking platforms, digital currencies, strengthening the new development bank and contingent reserve arrangements, and similar measures can create a better world for all. New technologies, especially artificial intelligence, will have strategic and remarkable impacts on our lives. In the near future, unilateral countries, like in the past, will impose many restrictions on developing countries' access to new technologies. To counter these limitations, we must cooperate with one another and have no choice but to invest jointly, exchange experiences, and accelerate joint cooperation. Distinguished guests, the geographical expanse of BRICS presents a unique opportunity to facilitate transcontinental connections and pursue shared interests, a process that will have a significant impact on reducing the existing developmental rift and increasing people's welfare. The future belongs to countries that play the greatest role in creating convergence and establishing a new order of institutionalized relations based on the discourse of consensus and justice. In conclusion, I would like to once again thank Mr. Vladimir Putin for the excellent hosting and holding of this important summit meeting in the beautiful city of Kazan. May God's peace and blessing be upon you all.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. We count very much on our active interaction within the grouping. And as I have said in my opening remarks, we are all very much concerned by the developments both in the Gaza and region-wise too. We hope that every measure is taken to reduce tensions and to prevent the spillover of the conflict in the region. I had a conversation with many counterparts, and it is everyone's base assumption, and we wish you successful resolution of difficult bottlenecks and controversies in the region. Now the floor is given to President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Ramaphosa.
Your Excellency President Vladimir Putin, Your Excellencies, leaders of BRICS nations, Your Excellencies, leaders of global and regional institutions, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, honorable ministers and excellencies. Allow me to begin by congratulating President Putin on chairing a very successful BRICS Summit, as well as leading us all to adopt an excellent declaration from this summit. The BRICS outreach and BRICS Plus engagements are important platforms for developing strong ties amongst countries, from greater global south and emerging markets. We should use these platforms to foster meaningful engagement. We should use the BRICS platform to contribute to social, economic, cultural development of our peoples. We welcome the Russian initiatives that are aimed at strengthening a number of BRICS countries through the various measures that they have put on the table, such as transport networks and connectivity. This, in many ways, will help to find ways to integrate and deepen our interconnectedness in new and imaginative ways. The African Continental Free Trade Area will make a huge contribution itself to unlock opportunities for trade and investment for local and global businesses. It will create a number of opportunities that will lead to an integrated and connected continent. The Single African Air Transport Market is another flagship project of the African Union Agenda 2063. This is an initiative of the African Union to create a single unified air transport market in Africa to support the continent's economic integration. For BRICS and friends of BRICS, we need to use these projects to further connect the greater global south. The promotion of greater regional connectivity and trade facilitation can only succeed in an environment of peace and stability. Excellencies, South Africa is concerned about the military action by the State of Israel against the people of Gaza, which we have characterized as genocide, is deeply concerning. This genocide led South Africa to approach the International Court of Justice with a view to stopping the killing of innocent women and children in Gaza. We do believe that the world cannot just sit by and watch the slaughter of innocent people continuing. South Africa has been unwavering in its support towards all efforts aimed at the establishment of a viable Palestinian state, existing side by side in peace with Israel, within internationally recognized borders based on the 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital. And this would be in line with all UN resolutions, international law, and internationally agreed parameters. We do call on the international community and the United Nations Security Council to address this spiraling conflict. On our own continent, Africa, Sudan enters its second year of horrific conflict and devastation. This is another conflict that the world seems to have forgotten about. The protracted conflicts in the Sahel and Great Lakes regions in Africa persist. We must find lasting solutions to all these conflicts. We must remain committed to the peaceful resolution of all disputes through negotiation and inclusive dialogue. And we must safeguard the ability of states to pursue independent foreign policy. And we must safeguard the multilateral system, because it is the cornerstone of international relations that fosters an environment of peace and development. Existing global institutional mechanisms need to be both strengthened and reformed to play a constructive role in the international peace and security. We cannot allow conflicts just to continue in perpetuity. We do need to find paths to peace. In our quest for a long, interconnected, just and prosperous world, we have the ability to foster an environment of peace through a focus on sustainable development. We must also continue to support nations and peoples who seek to end the cycle of conflict and choose the path of peace. I thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you, Mr. President of South Africa. South Africa is making a lot for the development of our group in order to make sure that the situation in Africa is also developing in a positive way. And now it is my pleasure to pass on the floor to the representative of Brazil.
Excelentíssimo Senhor Presidente Putin, senhores chefes de Estado, de governo e convidados. É uma honra representar o presidente Lula nesta sessão plenária da cúpula do BRICS com
It
os
is a great
países
honor for me
convidados.
to represent President
prazer
Lula at
estar ao
this
lado dos
BRICS
países
Summit,
amigos do BRICS.
and it is my great pleasure to
O
be
interesse
here
que
among our
despertamos
BRICS
é
friends.
ao mesmo tempo motivo de orgulho e
It is my
lembrete
particular
da nossa
pleasure
responsabilidade. O BRICS não é uma simples
To
sigla
see the
inventada por
adoption
economista.
of our decision.
Por
BRICS
trás
is
dessas
not
5
only
letras,
5
há uma
letters.
realidade palpável
These 5
construída
letters
ao longo de décadas de
mean a
esforço por
reality
mundo mais equânime.
that had
O
been
BRICS deve
built
muito ao G77
throughout many
e ao
years.
movimento não alinhado. Somos herdeiros dos que lutaram
BRICS
por uma
owes it to
nova
the group of
ordem econômica
77 and the non-alliance group. We follow the legacy of those who had fought for a new economic order and outlined the Sustainable Development Goals. We are the main driving force of economic development that the world is going through this century. Global South is a positive force in the world. In the past, the League of Arab States headed a peaceful initiative that proposed a balanced and realistic way to address and settle the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Today, Egypt is an indispensable actor when it comes to provision of humanitarian assistance to Gaza, while Qatar is a bridge between Hamas and Israeli authorities. Brazil was a country that during its presidency in the Security Council of the UN in October past year, for the first time proposed an initiative, a draft resolution on the situation in Gaza, but it was vetoed by one of the countries. South Africa was the country that courageously addressed the International Court of Justice in order to put an end to the genocide against the Palestinian people. Countries of Global South voted for the resolution of the UN General Assembly calling for the end of hostilities. At the same time, the role played by other countries was at least a matter of concern and regret. Those who call themselves human rights protectors close their eyes to the greatest atrocities of modern history. They undermine the authority of and the relevance of the Security Council and the entire humanitarian international law. There will be no peace unless and until there is an independent Palestinian state. The decision on the establishment of this state was adopted 75 years ago by the United Nations Organization. However, that very UN that created the State of Israel is now bound. There is no justification to the acts of terrorism like those committed by Hamas, but unproportionate reaction of Hamas was a collective punishment against the people of Palestine. More explosive were Gaza was hit by more explosives than Dresden during World War II. An escalation in Lebanon requires lots of a great careful approach to make sure there is no spillover into a real war. de-escalation is important for the conflict in Ukraine. It is a message that Brazil and China try to convey, as well as other 11 countries. We have established a club of peace for the search for dialogue and a lasting solution. And this decision will only happen when it is based on the principle of respect of sovereignty and territorial integrity, as well as respect for the legitimate concerns in the field of security. We need to focus on resolution of the greatest problems of our time. Brazil has chosen social integration, fight against climate change, and reform of global governance as its priorities for the time of our presidency. The example of Cuba is indicative. For decades, its economy has been suffering, and right now, everything is being done in order to exacerbate the energy situation and the situation in the field of healthcare in that country. We would like to renew our solidarity to the people of Cuba, and we hope that measures will be adopted to make sure that Cuba is delisted from the countries who are considered sponsors of terrorism. We believe inclusion of Cuba on that list was illegal. Brazil's priorities in G20 are social integration, fight against climate change, as well as fight for the reform of global governance system and establishment of global financial institutions. We invite everyone to join the Global Alliance Against Poverty and Hunger. We try to mobilize resources in order to pursue policy against these problems. We also call upon everyone to raise the ambitions when it comes to national contributions into fight against climate change. We are preparing for COP30, and we can show even more courage. We should not abandon the principle of shared but differentiated responsibility. We have to join our efforts, not to be left behind during the energy transition and digital revolution. We cannot be limited to the position of energy suppliers. We cannot use the logic of main exporters that existed 30 years ago. We can't be comfortable in the position of observers when there is an evolution of artificial intelligence. We need to participate in its regulation and get a fair compensation for the use of our data. The presidency of G20 has adopted a call for action in the reform of global governance that was supported by many countries present in this hall. Brazil considers a possibility of proposing in the General Assembly a convention, a meeting following in accordance with the Article 109, and we want to consider the topic of strengthening global cooperation with the South for just and more sustainable development. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your contribution. And now I give the floor to Minister of External Affairs of India. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Your Excellency, President Vladimir Putin, Highnesses, Excellencies, friends. It is my honor to represent Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the BRICS Outreach segment. I convey his greetings to all of you. Let me join colleagues in thanking President Vladimir Putin for the excellent arrangements and the warm hospitality. Excellencies, we face the paradox that even as forces of change have advanced, some long-standing issues have only become more complex. On the one hand, there is the steady diversification of production and consumption. Nations that attained independence from colonialism have accelerated their development and socio-economic progress. New capabilities emerged, facilitating the harnessing of more talent. This economic, political, and cultural rebalancing has now reached a point where we can contemplate real multipolarity. The BRICS itself is a statement of how profoundly the old order is changing. At the same time, many inequities of the past also continue. In fact, they have assumed new forms and manifestations. We see that in the access to developmental resources and modern technology and efficiencies. Let us also recognize that the benefits of globalization have been very uneven. Adding to all that, the COVID pandemic and multiple conflicts have aggravated the burdens borne by the global south. Concerns of health, food, and fuel security are particularly acute. The summit of the future underlined that the world is in real danger of falling significantly behind in realizing SDG targets. How do we reconcile this contradiction and ensure that the benefits of change reach those who are currently left behind? How do we create a more equitable global order? First, by strengthening and expanding platforms of an independent nature, and by widening the choices in different domains and minimizing undue reliance on those that can be leveraged. This is really where BRICS can make a difference for the global south. Second, by reforming established institutions and mechanisms, especially the UN Security Council in the permanent and the non-permanent categories. So too, the multilateral development banks, whose working procedures are just as outdated as that of the UN. India initiated an effort during its G20 presidency, and we are glad to see that Brazil is taking it forward. Third, by democratizing the global economy through creating more production hubs. The COVID experience is a sharp reminder of the need for more resilient, redundant, and shorter supply chains. For essential needs, every region legitimately aspires to create their own production capabilities. Fourth, by correcting distortions in global infrastructure that are a legacy from the colonial era. The world urgently needs more connectivity options that enhance logistics and mitigate risks. This must be a collective endeavor for common good with utmost respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty. And fifth, by sharing experiences and new initiatives. India's digital public infrastructure, its unified payment interface, the Gati Shakti infrastructure all hold a larger relevance. The International Solar Alliance, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, the Global Biofuel Alliance, Mission Life, and the International Big Cat Alliance are similarly initiatives of common interest. As a first responder, be it for natural calamities, health emergencies, or economic crisis, we seek to do our fair share. Excellencies, addressing conflicts and tensions effectively is a particular need of the day. Prime Minister Modi has emphasized that this is not an era of war. Disputes and differences must be settled by dialogue and diplomacy. Agreements, once reached, must be scrupulously respected. International law should be adhered to without exception, and there should be zero tolerance for terrorism. Excellencies, the situation in the Middle East, West Asia for us, is an understandable concern. There is a widespread anxiety that the conflict would spread further in the region. Maritime trade has also been deeply affected. The human and material consequences of further escalation are truly serious. Any approach has to be fair and durable, leading to a two-state solution. Excellencies, we meet in difficult circumstances. The world must be prepared to think afresh on long-standing challenges. Our gathering is a message that we are indeed prepared to do so. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. India demonstrates unique growth rate of 7.5% of GDP, and the population is growing by 10 million people annually. It's quite impressive, and it makes a solid contribution to the development and growth of our grouping, and I would like to congratulate you on your successes. Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Deputy Prime Minister of United Arab Emirates.
Excellencies, Majesties, Highness, ladies and gentlemen, Excellency President Vladimir Putin, the President of Federal Russia. I would like at the outset to convey the greetings of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the President of the Emirates States, and I would like to extend our sincere thanks to you, Excellency President, and to the Russian chairmanship of BRICS this year. We value the efforts aiming at the enhancement of the international dialogue at a time we are in need of collective action for facing the global challenges for a better world. Through the Russian chairmanship, a collective vision is embodied, reinforcing the BRICS as a platform not only for resolving solutions, but drawing a future map for a better future for the world. BRICS is not only confined to economic cooperation, rather it is a model for an existing partnership based on multilateralism. Through this platform, our states can benefit from various expertise and achieve common progress. This is the base out of which the Emirate goes forward. It has always put international cooperation at the core of its policies. My country believes that the real partnership is based on common interests and mutual respect, and not only on the limited and narrow interests. Today, we meet with the BRICS states and friends to probe a better, more and more stable world. Our world is going through unprecedented circumstances affecting all countries, regardless of the size of their economies and their geographical position. The abrupt economic, whether in terms of the abrupt economic changes, climate change, and the aggravation of conflicts and the transition in energy, we are all required to find long-lasting constructive solutions. That is the essence of our cooperation within the framework of BRICS, which is committed to the UN Charter, the international legitimacy as a basis for international cooperation and multilateral action. Attainment of international peace and security is solidly guarantee building a global forefront for encountering our common challenges, and is capable to put an end to the sufferings of the population, civilians in the flashpoints and conflict areas, and to build prosperity. On this basis, we call for a permanent and immediate ceasefire in Gaza Strip and unconditional access of aid to all civilians, and to start a new political track based on the two-state solutions, and show respect with all international legitimate decisions. Also in Lebanon, we reiterate the sustainability of supporting international efforts for de-escalation and immediate ceasefire, as well as put an end to the Israeli aggression and the humanitarian crisis. And we strongly condemn the violations to the international decisions and the UN and Security Council resolutions. Majesties and Excellencies, through our today's discussion to foster cooperation with BRICS states and France, like trade, investment, energy transformation, food security, and food and security in general. This will enhance facing the global challenges more effectively and finds foundations for long-lasting development. UAE believes that expansion of cooperation with partnership states is an opportunity for finding innovative opportunities, opening horizons for mutual benefit. In our today's world, multilateralism is not an option, yet a necessity. Challenges encountering us, economic, environmental, social, we cannot contend with by ourselves. However, multilateralism is the base of stability and growth. UAE stands ready to go forward to enhance this approach by collaborating with friendly states. My country believes that the key role played by the emerging and developmental countries for forging the future of economy, we believe that the global South must be effective and influential partners in formulating the economic resolutions. UAE aspires through BRICS and close relationship with France to the promotion of openness, and we believe in building further platforms and partnerships for shared knowledge and expertise that contribute to the enhancement of our future. We proceed with the expansion and fostering the positive expansion, and we are supporting such reform. Excellency President, once again, I extend my sincere thanks to you and to Russia for the warm hospitality and the good organization. I hope the outcomes of our meetings would be a significant step to the fostering cooperation among the BRICS countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And on our part, I'd like to ask you to give the thanks and the words of gratitude to the President of the United Arab Emirates for active participation in our work. Thank you. I would now like to give the floor to the President of the African Union, to the President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Excellency President. Excellency President Vladimir Putin, President of Federal Russia, the Chairman of BRICS session, Majesties and Excellencies, Presidents of states and governments, heads of delegations, ladies and gentlemen, at the outset I'm pleased to extend a sincere thanks to His Excellency President Vladimir Putin, President of Federal Russia, for his kind invitation to participating in the BRICS 16th Summit, held under the motto Multilateral Cooperation for the sake of security and fair development. We equally extend thanks for the superior due care and warm hospitality provided to us and to our delegation. I would like to express in my name and on behalf of the African Union our deep gratitude and commend to the BRICS grouping for the support given to the African continent and to the appreciated efforts exerted for gaining a permanent seat for the African Union in the G20. Excellencies, Highness and Majesties, ladies and gentlemen, the BRICS today forms one of the most significant platforms for upgrading multilateral cooperation, especially among Global South. The gradual expansion of this grouping and the disparity of developmental levels between its states and the states seeking its membership express the conviction of the groupings in development and the progress, as they are not merits limited to countries than others, rather right to all countries, regardless developmental disparities and contexts. Therefore, we should listen to them, respect their priorities and their basic developmental needs. Development can never be neither effective nor sustainable unless it is comprehensive and is firmly established on international solidarity and cooperation. This general principle is the foundation for our convergence in the African Union for attaining SDGs. We think that stumbled and low SDGs and the existing impotence in lifting the enormous challenges in terms of security, economy, and environment encountering the world is partially due to the weakened multilateral cooperation and the imbalances of the global international financial and political governance and the dramatic shortfall of solidarity of international regional solidarity and concerted efforts. Therefore, the world today, notably our African continent, is in a dire need of a new dynamic of multilateral cooperation and international solidarity and synergy. It is critically necessary to reformulate the rules of the international financial and political governance. It is difficult to our African states to tap its huge development opportunities and liberalize its tremendous potentials in favor of development and growth, while indebtedness issue is still persistent, strongly impeding the development efforts. The development aid system proved its inability to achieving its aspired goals, in addition to the weak representation of the continent in multilateral financial institutions, which doesn't allow it to show respect to the international agenda of its urgent needs, notably related to infrastructure, reinforcing growth, technology transformation, enhancement of educational systems, and new technologies. In the aggregate, an EU chart for development must be put in place to be more flexible and sustainable and safeguard the countries, the least developing countries, easy access and fair access for financing customized to their priorities. Despite such revision, the reformulation of the rules of the international political governance is important for tackling the international peace and security. The international political governance in the current reformulation makes it more unfair and apply double standard in dealing with the issues on the account of the vulnerable and least developed countries. Double standards while overlooking the humanitarian values explains today to the international community the necessity for halting what we are witnessing in terms of massacres and grotesque massacres in Palestine and Lebanon, as well as the weakened international solidarity and multilateral cooperation explains parts of our impotence in the African Union to terminating terrorism, threatening our peace and security and our developmental efforts. So we have to call for a motto that requires a strict observance of the international law and humanitarian international law, translating our collective humanitarian values. So it is incumbent upon us all to deepen awareness of the unified humanitarian fate, and no effective convergence for the issues of security and peace can be attained without collective symbiosis of convergence. So in order to be able to enjoy long-lasting peace, it is necessary to enhance multilateral cooperation and international synergy, and to reform the international political governance for fairer and more balanced representation of the least developed countries. So within this context, I would like to reiterate from this podium our call for granting the African Union a permanent seat in the Security Council, to be able to allow its voice to be heard and to observe its priorities on the international agendas. In the African Union, we greatly rely on meeting this request, and we rely on the BRICS support and the Global South support. I hope for the proceedings of this summit all the best, and I'm fully confident that its results would contribute to enhancement of cooperation. Thank you.
Who Russia shares deep historic ties with. We wish you great success and thank you for the participation in our work. Thank you. I now give the floor to the President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, dear President Putin, I congratulate you on the successful presidency. It's very timely and highly effective. Over a historically short period of time, the organization became a point of attraction. It's with this organization that more and more countries choose to connect their point of view with a just world order. A world order where there are ensured rights of sovereign states without taking into account their size or military power, where they recognize the rights of each independently to choose their ideology of development and to lead their independent external policy. BRICS is an organization of the future, and its potential could bring an end to the history of domination of the West, which proved its unworthiness of bearing the responsibility for the civilized development of international relations. Among the powers of BRICS, they have it in their powers to pass on the power to the progressive global majority. We fully share the BRICS philosophy. Belarus is ready to share their ideas and projects aimed at solving common human problems, and we're ready to become a full-fledged member of the organization. Belarus is traditionally a trustworthy partner. Our geographical location at the center of Europe, our experience and achievements allow us to say surely that Belarus will become an important piece of puzzle, building together the future of our organization. Participation of Belarus expands the borders of possibilities of the organization, making it more universal and comprehensive. Allow me to map out only a few areas where we could play an important role. First of all, security. Mutual respect, indivisible security, guarantees of countries' development without confrontations and clashes are the principles that should be at the basis of our new world order from our point of view. Secondly, sustainable development for most countries of the global majority, as well as for us. It is especially relevant, the task of mapping out sustainable, economically sufficient states at the lack of great natural resources, geographical or climactic advantages. Belarus is successful at that. We're prepared to share our historic experience, how to become stronger ourselves and make others stronger, how to stand against sanction pressure or colorful revolutions, how to preserve and multiply human potential, how to ensure high potential standards and a decent standards of life, how to use innovations and quickly use our technologies. Thirdly, this has already been mentioned before, fight against hunger, poverty, and the consequences of climate change. Belarus is one of the leading world exporters of mineral resources, of food, goods, of agricultural machinery, and new technologies. We bring our contribution to ensuring food security all over the world. We're ready to cooperate with our colleagues in the science field, in issues of adapting agriculture produce towards climate change, as well as involving lands in the agricultural turnover. Fourth, humanitarian area. Belarusian education is highly estimated all over the world. Degrees in highly qualified positions are sought out by representatives of over 110 countries. An important part of the development of our sovereign state is a strong science school. Among our priorities are the energy technologies, nanomaterials, new energy sources, industry, biotechnologies, medicine, and the IT. Belarus has worked out a range of competitions in the aerospace area, and we're ready to contribute in releasing initiatives on creating satellite systems for BRICS, as well as the upcoming consortium of the space exploration. We're ready to share our experience, our best practices. Dear friends, Belarus has a high level of cooperation and trustworthy relations with the absolute majority of the countries whose representatives are present here today. With most of them, we have a long-standing history of successful cooperation. And now we can add on our expertise on bilateral area with new integrations in this format. Minsk confirms full preparedness for full-fledged membership in this organization. I thank you for your attention. Mr. Lukashenko, thank you very much for your address. Belarus showcases great steps in development and economy and social sphere, and of course shares its sphere of responsibility in the work of our organization. Thank you very much. I now give the floor to the President of Lao PDR, as well as the President in the ASEAN. Please, the floor is yours.
Your Excellency Vladimir Putin, President of the Russian Federation, esteemed heads of state and government of BRICS countries, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor and privilege to have been invited to the BRICS Outreach Summit by His Excellency President Vladimir Putin, Chair of the 16th BRICS Summit, which provides me with the opportunity to join the heads of state and government of BRICS member countries and developing nations of the Global South here in this beautiful city of Kazan. Excellencies, the international community is currently grappling with numerous challenges, making it increasingly difficult to foresee how the global future will unfold. These challenges pose a significant threat to global peace, stability, and security, while severely hampering development efforts of many nations, particularly developing ones. Today, more than ever, BRICS plays an indispensable role in reshaping the global order and fostering cooperation mechanisms that are just, equitable, and mutually beneficial to all nations, particularly the developing ones from the global south, which in turn contributes to building a better world. And this commitment aligns seamlessly with the theme of today's summit, Building a Better World Together. I therefore commend the Russian Federation as one of the founding members of BRICS for spearheading key initiatives and establishing much-needed frameworks aimed at creating new, yet long-awaited economic and financial difficulties that address the evolving and pressing needs of the international community. Excellencies, the Lao PDR places great importance on multilateralism as a fundamental mechanism for promoting sustainable development, while also emphasizing the crucial role of fostering international cooperation grounded in the principle of multilateralism, which is essential for building peace, security, and equitable development. In 2024 this year, the Lao PDR assumed the ASEAN chairmanship under the theme ASEAN Enhancing Connectivity and Resilience. We have identified 9 key priorities, including economic integration, inclusive and sustainable growth, digital transformation, cultural cooperation, environmental and public health collaboration, and the empowerment of women and youth. Additionally, we aim to build effective cooperation mechanism that will strengthen collaborations among ASEAN member states and with ASEAN dialogue partners, which also include BRICS member countries. And in this regard, allow me to share some of my thoughts as follows. 1. The Lao PDR views BRICS as a robust and resilient cooperation mechanism with considerable influence on the global stage. We therefore encourage BRICS to continue strengthening its leadership in guiding the world towards just and equitable development. 2. BRICS member countries and developing nations should deepen cooperation at all levels, both bilaterally and multilaterally, while fostering mutual support and assistance for the global south. Expanded collaborations in critical areas such as trade, investment, tourism, digital transformation, clean energy, carbon credits, education, and human capital development will create favorable conditions for achieving the 2030 United Nations Agenda for Sustainable Development goals, ensuring that no one is left behind. And 3, in light of BRICS' notable achievements and its growing significance on the global stage, the Lao PDR wishes to formally express its interest in becoming a member of BRICS. We are eager to enhance our cooperations with BRICS members across a wide range of sectors and look forward to your support in welcoming the Lao PDR as a future member of this group. In conclusion, the Lao PDR remains steadfast in its commitment to supporting and collaborating with BRICS countries and developing nations of the Global South. I'm confident that the outcomes of our discussions at this summit will further strengthen our partnership and contribute to building a better world for all of humanity in the future. With that, I wish the 16th BRICS Summit every success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you for the participation, for active participation as a head of state and as president of the ASEAN. Asia by and large and Southeastern Asia have been undergoing rapid development, and this is going to be a driver of our joint work and our participation and engagement in that region. I'd like to give the floor to President of Turkey, Mr. Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
Distinguished heads of states and governments, valuable friends, I would like to salute you all with love and respect on behalf of myself and my nation. It gives me great pleasure to be able to get together with you on the occasion of the expanded leadership session. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank my dear friend, the President of the Russian Federation, Mr. Vladimir Putin, for his kind hospitality and for his sincere invitation. And I also would like to congratulate him for being such gracious hosts. As of January, Brazil will be assuming the term presidency, and I would like to wish my Brazilian friends the best of luck in their endeavor. Yesterday, a terror attack had taken place, and I would like to thank all my friends for extending their sincere condolences and the solidarity that they have so generously shown. This heinous act will not impede the resolve of Turkey to fight back terrorism. Dear friends, from economy to security, from global injustice to climate change, we are going through significant challenges, the ramifications of which can be felt everywhere. The theme of this summit, strengthening multilateralism for security and fair global development, is very punctual and is very to the point. And I would like to accentuate one point sincerely. This is the time when social economic fragilities are increasing and the power axis is shifting, and the political and the financial mechanisms can no longer serve our best interests, which were established in the aftermath of the Second World War. Things are changing in this day and age, and we believe as Turkey that a fairer world is possible. In multilateral platforms, we are always getting together with our friends, and we are trying to support the initiatives in order to find common solutions to the outstanding problems using our joint wisdom. We believe that BRICS contributes tremendously in a unique way to the development of global trade, economic expansion, and sustainable development goals. And I think BRICS is also contributing to the possible establishment of a fairer global order. Turkey is a founding member to many international institutions and organizations, from the Council of Europe to the Organization of Turkic States to Developing Aid to Economic Cooperation Organization and the Black Sea Economic Cooperation Organization as well. We are active members of G20 and MICTA. The African Union and ASEAN are some of the platforms where we have close partnerships, along with the communities of Latin America and Caribbean states. And we are investing tremendously in expanding our cooperation mechanisms every day. As Turkey, we are basing our endeavors on reciprocal respect, and we are partnering with friendly countries on a win-win scenario. And we are very much determined to further pursue our positive relations with the BRICS family members. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, global fair order and development can only be established through peace and security, to be established all around the world. So long as we don't stop the bloodshed in the Middle East, we can never speak about development, nor the future, nor justice, nor development. Israel is actually setting fire on the entire region, and they have violated every boundary from international law to conscience. The Palestinian people are being massacred in Gaza, and that's a genocide. And Israel is attacking Lebanon as we speak, and they are becoming even more destructive and oppressive. This is a humanitarian crisis that we are experiencing in the midst of the 21st century, and ignoring this fact can never relieve us from our responsibilities. It's an indispensable fact that we have to go back to the borders of 1967 in Palestine, with Eastern Jerusalem as the legitimate capital of Palestine, where a Palestinian state's sovereignty and territorial integrity will be respected at the utmost extent possible, or else a just and a permanent peace will never be established. And I would like to kindly invite all the countries to start recognizing Palestine if they haven't done that. The genocide actors, Israel government, has to be stopped through international community's support. And unconditional weapons and arms sales to Israel should be stopped, because it encourages Israel to become much more destructive. And we have started an initiative within the United Nations to stop weapons from being sold to Israel. I would like to salute you all, and I believe that you will be very supportive of our initiatives. And before I conclude my remarks, I would like to salute you all with love and respect. I hope and pray that this meeting will yield the most auspicious results for the entire human race. And I would like to thank everybody involved in the organization.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. President. Under your leadership, Turkey has been pursuing an independent foreign policy course, and that merits our respect, and we cooperate very well bilaterally, doing a lot to resolve difficulties in the region, and I'm sure that Turkey's work within this entity will also be relevant. And I'd like to give the floor to President of Uzbekistan, Mr. Mirzayev, His Excellency.
Distinguished heads of delegations, my cordial greetings, and I would like to echo the words of gratitude to the President of the Russian Federation, esteemed Vladimir Putin, for traditionally warm hospitality and exceptional organization of today's event in the ancient Kazan, a city with 1,000-year history where the cultures of East and West harmoniously coexist. The statements from my distinguished colleagues reinforce the significance of gatherings in the BRICS Plus format for broad dialogue and open discussions on the pressing issues of global development. Regrettably, the world is rapidly moving towards division. Increasing number of wars and conflicts inflicting profound suffering, severe pain, and irreplaceable human losses. The global economy and trade fragmentation is deepening inequality, technological gap, and protectionism. New barriers are emerging among nations. Under these conditions, BRICS, acting on the basis of the following principles: equality, non-alignment, mutual interest consideration, and respect for each nation's sovereignty and right to pursue its own developmental path, emerges as a reputable and dynamic formation for multifaceted cooperation and partnership. We are convinced that such a model of interaction can serve as a solid basis or ground for shaping a new architecture for more equitable world order, while preserving the central role of the United Nations. I endorse the calls for achieving a global compromise through constructive dialogue, free from geopolitical rivalries, national egoism, and ideological prejudice. We believe that time has come to reform the world's governing institutions and expand a committed dialogue in the South-South and North-South formats. Esteemed participants of the summit, during the productive Russian presidency, Uzbekistan actively participated in the BRICS Youth Summit, sports games, legal and parliamentary fora, a high-level security meeting, and other events. Today, we are committed to further actively enhance partnership ties with BRICS countries. We will be efficiently taking advantage of new opportunities which are opening as part of this formation. We share the fundamental commitments of BRICS countries to develop cooperation in order to overcome the challenges of worsening global inequality and facilitate the inclusive economic recovery. This refers primarily to supporting national programs of developing countries aimed at tackling acute social and environmental challenges, reducing poverty, narrowing the technological gap and modernization of infrastructure. Multilateral financial institutions can and should play an important role in this regard. Uzbekistan intends to establish close collaboration with the BRICS New Development Bank to implement priority investment and social projects. We're also interested to expand practical cooperation in such areas as innovation, digital economy, green development, and energy. Barrier-free e-commerce. We intend to participate in joint projects of the BRICS Research Group on artificial intelligence to prevent possible risks and develop common management standards in this area. We're ready to join the BRICS Competence Center under the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, which is being formed, and also as the participants for proposed investment platform. We are particularly interested in participating in program for training specialists in the field of education, and also we intend to closely collaborate on strengthening transport connectivity, creating new transcontinental corridors, forming reliable logistics supply chain, and developing the coastal or cabotage transportation. We will also focus on ensuring food and energy security, healthcare, as well as overcoming the adverse effects of climate change. We welcome the development of business contacts with BRICS. We propose to consider the possibility of including all interested countries in BRICS Business Council. Dear colleagues, so for us, the priority remains in cooperation in BRICS space, are countering the threats and challenges of international terrorism. We must attack special focus, and we have to attach special focus to the prevention of radicalization and the spread of extremistic ideology, primarily among youth. Uzbekistan stands for broad cooperation, and we do share the concern regarding the escalating conflict in the Middle East. It is increasingly evolving into a potential flashpoint of global crisis involving neighboring countries and major world powers. We're heartbroken by unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe in the Gaza and Lebanon. No political objectives can justify innocent civilian victims, casualties, especially children. Today, the immediate ceasefire and the delivery of emergency relief to all the victims are the paramount urgency. We believe that the only solution to the Israeli-Palestinian problem is a peaceful settlement of the conflict based on the two-state solution principle. When it comes to global and regional security, we cannot overlook the problem of Afghanistan. Our common task is not to isolate, but help the people of Afghanistan and the de facto authorities of the country to address the pressing problems of socio-economic development, peace building, and prosperity. Distinguished participants of the summit, Uzbekistan is ready to engage in close and mutually beneficial cooperation with BRICS countries to achieve common goals of sustainable development. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. President. Uzbekistan, under your leadership, has shown impressive pace of economic and democratical development. I'd like to also mention that the potential for further development, the room for development, is huge. I would like to thank you for attending the events of the forum in the course of the year, and thank you. And we pay a lot of attention to the situation around Palestine, so I'd like to give the floor to the President of State of Palestine, Mr. Mahmoud Abbas.
Thank you. In the name of Almighty God, Excellency President Vladimir Putin, President of Federal Russia, and the Chairman of the BRICS, leaders, presidents of BRICS, States, ladies and gentlemen, peace be upon you, his blessings and bounties. I would like at the outset to extend to Your Excellency and to the presidents of the BRICS with sincere thanks for the kind invitation extended to us to participating in the proceedings of this significant session for the fostering collaboration among BRICS states and the Global South, which will allow us to expand and foster dialogue and collaboration in the fields of development, innovation, energy, culture, and international peace and security, and to give impetus to resolving the current international and regional crises, at the top of which the Palestinian cause for building a better world. In this regard, we congratulate the countries newly joined the BRICS, UAE, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Iran, for joining the BRICS, which forms a strong indicator to the incremental role of the groupings and its great importance at the international level. We hope that you would accept Palestine's request for annexing to the grouping as soon as possible. The great development of BRICS and the growing desire of other countries to joining the BRICS reflects the urgent need for an international world much fairer and just, given the failure of the current international world for finding a fairer resolution to the urgent causes and the chronic issues that the world suffers from, and comes at the top of which the Palestinian cause a full year has posed for the gravest catastrophe the Palestinian people is going through since the Nakba in 1948. That is the Israeli war, where the perpetration of genocide and ethnic cleansing are practiced in order to evacuate its population in Gaza Strip, especially now at the moment in North Gaza. The occupation troops is turning the people into hunger, as well as aggressions by the occupation troops, as well as the terrorist settlers against the Gaza Strip, including the West Bank and East Jerusalem, overthrowing the resolution of the international resolutions. And to expand the conflict, the Israeli government decided to shut down the headquarters of UNRWA in the East Jerusalem and to seize its actions in the occupied Palestinian territories, which necessitates the international community to reject and condemn such a decision and force the Israeli government to withdraw their decision. Therefore, it has become an urgent need and immediate need for the putting into effect the Security Council resolution on immediate ceasefire and allow the runs of the humanitarian aid, as well as the full Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, and the Palestinian state would be fully incumbent for allowing the displaced to come back to their homes and start reconstruction works. Presidents and heads of delegates, this is the first test for after 67 years since the Nakba, homelessness and displacement and sufferings of the Palestinian people. It is a high time for putting an end to oppression and terminating the practices of using thug power and force. So we invite all the international states to put into effect the resolution of the General Assembly on the ruling of the International Court of Justice to end the unlawful occupation of the Palestinian state and to have the East Jerusalem as its capital through 1 year as per the recommendation. So the sanctions must be posed in case the Israeli doesn't abide by the resolutions and the rules, and to work with the United Nations. We call for holding a global or universal peace conference. We greatly rely on the BRICS, which has a heavy weight in instilling the international peace and security. The presidents and leaders of delegates, the Palestinian state considers the principles on which the BRICS is based an indispensable part of its policy that believes in justice and mutual respect and common prosperity, which also represent the aspirations of our population. We extend our thanks to the leaders of the BRICS for their courageous and audacious stances in support of the Palestinian cause and the independence of Palestinian. We reiterate in this regard the Palestinian desire to be annexed to the BRICS groupings and to reinforce collaboration and involvement with the BRICS members. We stand ready to be committed to its goals and the activities and the practices of its groupings for the fulfillment of its activities and for the achieving a strategic partnership for a better future for humanity. Mr. President, I thank you for your statement. I wish all success to the groupings members. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. You noted the interaction between BRICS and the Global South. It is one of our priorities. As for the Palestinian developments, unfortunately, the world sees a lot of armed conflicts. At our borders, we see the same case, to our great dissatisfaction by the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza takes a special place, and what happens there resounds with aching heart with the global community, and we should spend our effort in changing this situation, building on the creation of the Palestinian state as foreseen by relevant resolutions of the United Nations. And these resolutions are to be implemented in full. Thank you so much for taking part in our today's session. Now, the floor is given to the President of Venezuela, Mr. Maduro. Good afternoon, Your Excellency, President Putin, friends, representatives of BRICS countries. I was preparing my remarks for this session, but I see the unfolding discussion before us, which is very prominent. I was taking notes as we spoke, and my comments are the continuous search for the ways to build a new world order. Over the last 60 to 70 years, And it is a point of my congratulation to you, President Putin, on the role played by the Russian Federation in organizing this successful summit. Venezuela has taken a minor portion in taking part in various meetings, which were over 200 activities, whose focus was to find tangible solutions to the needs of the modern world. The world that seeks to create a new world order. And this aspiration is as old as the world itself. The United Nations organization concentrated the efforts of all nations, of all powers, and we came up with a system that gave rise to rays of hope and outlined the main principles of international law. And all the nations of the planet followed these principles. But the quest for changes mentioned by the president of Brazil continued. There were leaders who created the non-alignment movement as far back as in the 50s, 60s, involving Egypt, Indonesia, Cuba. They were the main countries who developed the decolonization efforts of Asia and Africa. They were looking for independence of the new states, and the non-aligned movement did contribute significantly at some point in time. And the United Nations system was created to ensure global security. And I address Mr. Antonio Guterres, UN Secretary General. Ages change. The transformation continues. Now we have ushered in new era, new superpowers. New powers came into existence. There are countries who modestly, like Venezuela, Latin American countries, Bolivia, Nicaragua, Cuba, who are also represented here. We modestly, but still, try to make efforts to put into practice our dreams, to fulfill them, and while making sure that our right to independence, future development is respected as well. We are trying to contribute to global issues. I recall the Johannesburg Declaration, the Kazakh Declaration. These documents specify economic decisions, practical global trade, in order to come up with solutions for financial needs. These are the new needs, Your Excellencies, Presidents, and we must be open discussing these. We must be loud and clear. It is everyone's understanding that these new needs need to be met. It isn't sufficient just to reform financial and currency system. Sometimes it seems that the systems can no longer be subjected to further reforming because previous colonial countries of the West are trying to impose their hegemony by using hegemonic currency systems, through monetary loan systems, through certain financial economic packages. They impose their conditions. In this regard, Venezuela welcomes and emphasizes the need for more vigorous steps in order to consolidate the activities of the new development bank of BRICS in order for the Global South countries to be able to develop, in order for us to make progress in the new payment system that would replace the payment systems that are at times used as a weapon to commit aggression. Venezuela was a victim to such policy, as it is common understanding. We must create a mix of currencies that would combine the strong currencies of superpowers and being able at the same time to maintain our national currency. Every country must aspire for a solution to promoting inclusive economy of our country, of our countries, those who want to live in dignity. Additionally, there is an objective to reform the United Nations. I have had a conversation with the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Every missile that hits residential buildings in the Gaza Strip, wounded, killed in Beirut or in South Lebanon, these missiles destroy the United Nations. Where are the International Criminal Court? Or is it only being used to persecute Global South countries? Where is an international justice? Are they only there just to publish documents and communiques? How about life of women, children in the Global South? Let's search a practical and bold plan to reform the United Nations organization, which is agonizing effectively as we see the rise of Nazi regimes against the backdrop of the painful past. The new world to be created is being born right as we speak, with BRICS being at the core of this new nascent world. This world would be built on humane principles. As I have said during our bilateral meetings with President Putin, the thing I said was, Venezuela belongs to the BRICS family. I thank you for the invitation extended to our country. It is the first time that the President of Venezuela participates in a BRICS meeting. We share the BRICS principles. I'm convinced, and there is historical truth behind this, for over 200 years when Simon Bolivar, the liberator of our country, with his saber in his hand, liberated our nations, our continent. He fought for the balance worldwide. Hugo Rafael Chavez, our commandant, said, we are waiting for this multipolar world, multicentric world to be created. Your Excellencies, Mr. President, you can count on the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela in order to put into practice this historical project. Thank you so much. Thank you. Venezuela, under your leadership, continues the policy of Commandant Chavez to strengthen the national sovereignty. You demonstrate good rates of development. Last year, it was 5.5%. This year, we expect more than 7% of national growth. And I'm sure you're on the right track. And the legitimate government created under your able leadership after the election will do a lot to promote your country and promote cooperation with other countries too, within the framework and within the circuit of BRICS. Thank you so much for your speech. Now, the floor is given to the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Mr. Tokayev. Distinguished heads of state, Your Excellency, Secretary General of the United Nations, first and foremost, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation and gratitude to the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, for his invitation for the excellent setting of the BRICS Summit in Kazan, which is a unique historical city of the Eurasian continent. Now BRICS is a global center of the global attraction. Practical interest is expressed by multiple countries who seek to have a mutually beneficial cooperation. BRICS has a strong potential for development. It brings together countries from different continents. It strengthens solidarity. It efficiently uses joint opportunities to the benefit of all participating countries. BRICS has both the resources and the experiences to build a future building on the principles of joint prosperity, mutual respect, and partnership. To Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan attaches a lot of importance to the fact that with every BRICS member state, we have truly friendly relations. I haven't a single doubt that the multilateral efforts of BRICS will contribute to the activities of the United Nations, which still represents an irreplaceable entity, being universal too. The principles of diplomacy and dialogue, as enshrined in the United Nations Charter, form the core of the BRICS agenda. It promotes peaceful settlement of conflict and strengthening the strategic stability. We highly appreciate the concept of Russia to come up with equal and indivisible security in Eurasia in order to reduce geopolitical tensions through strengthening mutual trust and cooperation. Kazakhstan supports the initiative of China, the Global Security Initiative, which seeks to maintain global stability, protect sovereignty, and to use multilateral avenues and to peacefully settle conflicts. Kazakhstan generally supports China and Brazil's peace plan on Ukraine. Our country shares the concerns of participant countries of BRICS by the exacerbation in the Middle East, which resulted in multiple casualties and the humanitarian catastrophe. Our joint resolution of the root causes of the conflict, such as poverty, inequality, lack of education, are to address this is, in our opinion, the key factor to strengthen international political solidarity. Kazakhstan supports the idea to reform the United Nations Security Council, to extend it by inviting new members from Africa, Latin America, and Asia. The voices of the Global South countries are to be loud in addressing the issues of peace and security, and BRICS can play a pivotal role in this process while strengthening the representation of the so-called medium powers and developing economies in the global governance structure. Kazakhstan considers BRICS as one of the driving forces of the overall progress worldwide. We note with satisfaction the dynamic growth of the trade between Kazakhstan and the grouping countries. In 2023, it was almost 50% of our foreign trade balance. We seek to extend mutually beneficial cooperation in such areas as trade and investment, IT, technologies, critical minerals, food security, education, and tourism.
Kazakhstan is ready for close cooperation in order to strengthen the transit and transport cooperation in the BRICS area. Our country attributes particular importance to further development of the initiative entitled One Belt, One Road and South-North International Transport Corridor, as well as its links to the Trans-Caspian transport route connecting Asia and Europe through Kazakhstan, through the Caspian Sea. It is a possibility to give additional impetus to foreign trade in the long run. Kazakhstan seeks to form lasting partnership relations within BRICS Plus format with a view to strengthening the energy security. We are interested in promoting the existing and in launching future-oriented prospects when it comes to oil and gas processing as well as critical metals. We should use the vast BRICS potential for overcoming the challenges related to climate change, such as extreme global warming and desertation. We are convinced that our BRICS efforts will make it possible to enhance the connectivity between North and South eliminate imbalances between our countries, strengthen international security, and put in place conditions for a global process. Once again, I would like to assure you that Kazakhstan firmly intends to work jointly in the BRICS format in order to strengthen multilateral cooperation in the interest of a sustainable and secure development of states. I'm confident the BRICS Summit in Kazan will go down in history as an important milestone on our path to a better and juster world. I thank you for your attention. Thank you so much, Excellency, Mr. President. You have given a good assessment to the BRICS development. You mentioned that 50% of trade turnover counts for trade with BRICS countries. Those are real figures and real indicators of our cooperation. Logistics is very important. We attribute great attention to this factor, and we hope for active cooperation with Kazakhstan. And now I would like to give the floor to President of the Republic of Azerbaijan.
Dear Vladimir Vladimirovich, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, for the invitation. I'd like to seize this opportunity to congratulate the Russian Federation on successful chairmanship in BRICS. Azerbaijan is an active advocate of multilateralism, which was demonstrated by us during our chairmanship in the non-aligned movement in the 2020-2023. During the 4 years of our chairmanship, non-aligned movement has made great strides towards its institutional development and solidified its stature within the system of international relations. Our successful chairmanship experience is helping us today as a chairman in the measures and in Asia, using our geographical location and infrastructure. Azerbaijan has become one of the most important hubs in Eurasia. North, south, and crosses our territory, and all the segments of this transportation corridor are operating successfully. For the time being, given the drastic increase in cargo shipment across our territory, we're making new investments to expand the handling capacity of those corridors. Next month, Baku will be playing a host to largest international climatic conference, COP29. Unanimous decision of nearly 200 countries regarding hosting by Azerbaijan of the COP29 is a testament to support of our policies and to the confidence. We are contributing to cooperation between Global South and Global North on climate, and we will do our best to achieve mutual understanding both on climate change and also the matters of global security, rule of international law, non-interference of each other's affairs, and mutual trust. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. As you have pointed out, quite rightly, the role of Azerbaijan in the development of logistics corridors is extremely important. But not only that. Bearing in mind the growing trade volumes with Russia and other BRICS states, I believe what President of Kazakhstan has just mentioned also is very important. I would like to wish you all the best. Thank you so much, and now I would like to give the floor to President of the Republic of Congo, His Excellency Mr. Denis Sassou Nguesso. Your Excellency Vladimir Putin, President of the Russian Federation and acting chair of BRICS Plus, Excellencies, heads of state and government, distinguished participants of the summit, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to express my gratitude to His Excellency Vladimir Putin, President of the Russian Federation, who has gathered all of us on the occasion of the 16th BRICS Summit. I would also like to welcome heads of state and government present at this high-level meeting that is dedicated to the key issues related to global economy and the future of the peoples. I thank the authorities of the Russian Federation for their warm welcome extended to me and my delegation. I would like to sincerely congratulate you on superb arrangements. Yesterday, there was a BRICS meeting, now BRICS Plus meeting is taking place. The enlargement of BRICS and the number of today's participants is testimony to a greater interest on the part of the Global South. Our collaboration would contribute to a just, more prosperous world order. The main goal for us, the countries of the South, is to pool our efforts in order to create alternative financial instruments which would regulate global economies in a just way based on legitimate interests of our countries. Here, on the Volga River, decisions are being adopted that will determine the future of the world in response to economic devastations that are unseen, while developing financial institutions better adjusted to the new realities and increasing the trade volumes between our respective countries. That's how we'll be able to build our future based on a better, more independent and resilient economy. This attitude implies reform and adjustment of international financial institutions to make sure they better reflect the current economic realities and take into consideration the legitimate aspirations of our peoples. My country, the Republic of Congo, fully shares the aspirations of BRICS Plus countries, particularly when it comes to peace on the planet, general progress, and constructive multilateralism. While being aware of the growing importance of economic and political cooperation between the countries of the South, the Republic of Congo shows particular interest to the goals that had been outlined by the BRICS Plus countries, that is, contributing to inclusive and sustainable development, as well as making active contribution to the successful implementation of this important mission. Apart from having similar economic interests, our countries share common culture. It strengthens friendship between our nations. It is in this spirit that the Republic of Congo calls on implementation of joint initiatives in the field of education and culture. This would enrich the intercultural dialogue. Apart from that, my country is in the heart of the Congo River Basin. For more than half a century, have we been protecting the environment as part of our fight against climate change. I call on you to deepen our cooperation in the interest of preserving the ecosystems and biodiversity. In this context, the Republic of Congo has put forward for consideration of the UN General Assembly a resolution dedicated to the World Decade of Reforestation in order to underscore the important role played by the forests for climate regulation. I call on BRICS Plus countries to play a leading role in this fight for survival of the entire humanity. I welcome your efforts aimed at protection of the environment and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. And I also call BRICS Plus countries to support the adoption of this resolution in the United Nations Organization. I thank you for your attention. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Mr. President. You noted that global South countries share aspirations of BRICS countries. It is a joint vision on many issues, makes us better coordinate our positions. Thank you for your participation. And now I give the floor to President of Plurinational State of Bolivia, His Excellency Mr. Katakore. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to welcome all participants, and particularly our brother, President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. Thank you for your invitation. You are currently holding the chairship in the BRICS. I thank you for your invitation to participate in this meeting. I welcome BRICS leaders and heads of participating countries. I welcome the President of the New Development Bank, Madam Dilma Rousseff, and all participants. At the outset, I would like to express my gratitude for your warm welcome in Kazan and the hospitality extended to my country. It is a great honor for Bolivia to take part in this forum. It shows that we are able to establish a new multipolar world order that would be better balanced and more just for the entire humanity. Bearing in mind the similarity and the commitment of Bolivia to the goals outlined by your countries, I should state that we need to take reforms in order to better reflect the interests of developing countries. Bolivia is firmly convinced that global integration is needed. It is the most important mechanism for joint development. We share the vision of a better global governance, and it brings us even closer to BRICS. Today is a milestone. It is a very important day in the history of global economy. It is a day of hope when we see how well BRICS is symbolized by many colors of the flags of all founding countries, and it is even better reflected in the motto of today's day. It is a new day, it is a new chapter. It means that Bretton Woods institutions established in 1945 has expired. It was an era of prosperity of the West. They used dictatorship of dollar in order to subordinate and ensure dominance over Asian, African and Latin American countries, and thus to contain the periphery. We see a new day because the trend is irreversible. It is a path to multilateralism.
Que además representa a culturas milenarias mancilladas por el horror de la guerra, la destrucción y el hambre de su gente, sin respeto alguno por los tesoros en las artes que poseen, ni de sus bellos entornos naturales, a veces convertidos en páramos, por solo la ambición del control y la explotación de los recursos naturales estratégicos. Pese a ello,
due to the use of natural resources. Despite this, these peoples have a cultural heritage which makes us even stronger. Peoples of the world have spent many years under control of and hegemony of the unipolar world order. After the attempt to build a bipolar world order has failed. Today we see that multipolar world order is emerging, and it will control the economic relations on the planet. The situation on Mother Earth has reached its limits, and we are now facing a risk of the very survival of Mother Earth due to irrational arms race and concentration of wealth in the hands of a small group of countries. Daily, they produce even more strategic weapons in order to maintain their dominance, while inequality between the rich and the poor is exacerbating. The world is aware of this reality. Therefore, multipolar world order is an expression of the will, the interests of those people who have been punished by such illegitimate actions as neocolonialism, blockade of Cuba, and attacks against Palestine, as well as infringement on the rights of people who are denied their right to self-determination. We need to remember that Bolivia has presented has expressed its interest, has presented its claim against the crimes committed by Palestine in the case between South Africa and Israel in the International Court of Justice. We reaffirm our commitment to the interests of Palestine in the Middle East. We shouldn't forget about the steps aimed at destabilization and attempts to commit coup d'etats in countries who are potential victims of Western powers, those who seek to control the world since 1945. I'm talking about Venezuela and its oil, Bolivia and its lithium, as well as Honduras and Colombia, due to their geostrategical position, to mention just Latin American countries. Apart from these big problems, these macro problems caused by unilateral world order, the Russian Federation, as chair in the BRICS, promises that its actions will be aimed at promoting the entire range of cooperation on three pillars: politics and security, economics and finance, as well as cultural and people-to-people contacts. These words means that we, the peoples, are not only statistical data. We are not a backstage or backyard. We are the peoples and the nations with our own history and our own culture. Nonetheless, under the current circumstances, we understand that changes should not be dictated by someone. They are part of an entire general process.
And we need such a reform that was mentioned during the meeting of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of BRICS that took place on the 10th of June this year. 54 points during that meeting draw a picture of the actions that should be taken, aside from economic cooperation. They also reflect a common point of view. We believe it is necessary to build an international multilateral system that is more flexible, more effective, more representative, more legitimate, democratical, and responsible, which would allow the participation, a more effective participation of developing countries and less developed countries in order to grant them the possibility of choice that they're deprived of at the moment. Today, the economical force is shifting from transatlantic to the Pacific region. But global governance institutions stay focused on the global north, because these institutions play a decisive role during the decision-making progress and the decision of sanctions on trade, the energy supplies, and food security. This has to change. In line with this, the plurinational state of Bolivia supports reform of such bodies as the UN Security Council, the World Bank, and International Monetary Fund, which have to adapt to the reality for a just and representative basis. All demands have to be taken equally and have to take into account all the pillars of power. We support the reinforcement of the new Bank of Development, which is a key structure for financing the projects of developing countries such as Bolivia in order to achieve a fairer world. Global threats and challenges of capitalism that we're facing today require the unification of forces and solidarity of the majority of world countries who represent the global south today. We are convinced that thanks to the potential of our countries and with the support of BRICS countries, we will manage to stimulate the transformation of economy and global governments in order to reinforce the establishment of mutually beneficial development based on great achievements in technology, science, digital connections, and renewable energy sources. Bolivia is a country rich in mineral sources, natural resources. We're the first in supplying lithium. We have natural gas, traditional minerals, and rare earthly elements. We're going through the process of industrialization, and our participation in BRICS is aimed at mutual benefit of all the participations of this process. I believe that this meeting in Kazan will map out a new momentum in history, where many countries, there are attempts to enslave them, and depending on different conditions, we will try to map out our aspirations, the process of development, to gain back the sovereignty of our countries without any interference, with the right to self-determination, in order to restore sense in international relations, with respect for international law, and while ensuring equality for our nations subjugated to the tyranny and dollar. And at the end of this summit, we believe our results should result in actions that will benefit our nations and will contribute to a promising future for the global development of humankind and our future generations. Thank you very much. Distinguished President, you mentioned the Bretton Woods institutions. That was at the basis of international financing system. And I would like to remind everyone that the dollar stability back in the day was ensured with a connection to gold. Then there were other agreements who have detached the dollar from the gold. And the only guarantee of these world currency is the stability of the solar economy, the economy of the United States, its power and domination in the world. Right now, the situation in the world economy naturally shifts, and I would like to point that out naturally. So our task to take these inevitable changes and transformations and make them civilized. This is what we're calmly tackling in the BRICS institutions, and we will continue to do it gladly with the countries involved in our process. Please, now I give the floor to the Prime Minister of Armenia. Please, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, President Putin, distinguished heads of delegates, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation to take part in the outreach BRICS Plus meeting, and I would like to express my gratitude to the President of Russian Federation for the hospitality for the organization of today's summit at the highest level. The theme of today's meeting, BRICS and Global South, building a better world together. And I believe in this context, it is especially relevant, announced by the Armenian government, Transport Communication Project, the crossroads of the world. The meaning of this project is that Armenia is ready and is interested to organize in their territories to pass loads, transports, passengers of cable routes. This is the shortest route between the Black Sea and the Persian Gulf through the territory of Islamic Republic of Iran, Armenia, and Georgia. This is the north-south route. This is as well the shortest route between the Caspian and the Marble Sea, through the Azerbaijan, through Armenia and Turkey. This is the direction east-west. And of course, this route can also be used for transport communication connections between Azerbaijan and the Nakhichevansk Autonomous Republic. Taking into consideration this approach, we have proposed to Azerbaijan mechanisms of facilitated procedures of trans-border control, as well as ensuring additional security measures, taking into account legal base and with full respect for sovereignty of both states. I would like to once again emphasize that Armenia is capable of providing and will fully provide the secure transition of carriages, of transports, and of people through our territory. This is our desire, this is our obligation. We will guarantee and we will continue to guarantee it at all times. All claims that Armenia supposedly has agreed that a third party will ensure the security of communications on its sovereign territory, or perhaps it's supposed in some document is not real. Dear heads of states and delegations, yesterday the Armenian parliament ratified a document on joint action of Commission on demilitarizing the border and the transnational security between Armenia and Azerbaijan, as well as the State Commission of delimitation of the state border between Azerbaijan and Armenia. After the aforementioned document comes into power in both countries, we can facilitate the process of demilitation between Azerbaijan and Armenia based on the principles of the Almaty Declaration of 1999. I would like to point out separately that the decisions of the Constitutional Court of Armenia on these documents fully took off any concerns of the supposed presence in the Armenian constitution of territorial claims towards neighboring countries. We would like to state that these interpretations are baseless and illegitimate. Dear colleagues, both Armenia and Azerbaijan over the last months have repeatedly stated that the agreement project towards building majors and interstate relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan have been agreed upon almost at 80–90%. We've fully agreed on the phrasing of the mutual improvement of the territorial integrity, of the absence of territorial claims, and the promise not to put forward these claims in the future, based on the principle of non-use of force, of non-interference in the internal affairs of one another, with the establishment of diplomatic relations and creation of bilateral mechanisms to reinforce obligations disposed for the sides by the peaceful agreement. Our assessment is the following. As of to date, the project that has been agreed upon already addresses and solves all the principal issues necessary to ensure a steady basis for peace and normalized relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And we propose to Azerbaijan to sign these agreements. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. You've just mentioned the logistical project. I believe this is a very important area of cooperation in the region, and it is of especially great importance that you positively assess to enforce this project with Azerbaijan and other countries of the region, which over the last years we've spoken at length about. And I would like to point out that the process of remarcation and delimitation of borders, and I believe this is a great path toward peaceful agreement. And this is the goal of our meeting today, to exchange our point of view with the President of Azerbaijan. So I believe this is very in line with our work today. Thank you very much for your address. I now give the floor to the President of Kyrgyzstan, Mr. Zhaparov. Mr. President, dear heads of state and governments, Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to congratulate the Russian Federation on the successful chairmanship in BRICS, to wish great success and effective work, as well as thank you for a warm welcome and the hospitality in Kazan. I'd like to express my gratitude to Mr. Putin for the kind invitation to take part in this important event. Current busy agenda at BRICS reflects the relevance for all of humanity. In this organization, we see a unique platform that promotes principles of sovereign equal rights, mutual respect and trust, non-interference in internal affairs, and mutual economic development. We share goals and principles of BRICS activities on allowing possibilities for economic and social growth, development of entrepreneurship, promoting digital technologies, putting forward innovational and ecologically clean technologies, as well as solving climate challenges. I would like to add that this is fully in line with the Sustainable Development Goals integrated in the Kyrgyzstan's NDS until 2040. Dear friends, after the decades of globalization and integrational processes, the modern world community is seeing the geopolitical and economical fragmentation. Has the world become more secure, stable, and prosperous? Of course, the question is a rhetorical one. We see today the domination not of the international law, but the right of might. Each year, we see the new lines being drawn, lines of separation. We see higher finances on arms that could be forwarded towards prosperity and towards overcoming economic inequality. Select countries continue to get richer while deterring international trade and manipulating the financial system, which causes great damage to smaller, economically vulnerable countries. Despite the current difficult geopolitical position in the world, Kyrgyzstan does everything in its power for sustainable development, has already achieved attainable progress in this area, especially thanks to mass reforms. The economy of our country over the last years is developing steadily, despite unfavorable external factors and difficulties on the world market. Over the last 3 years, the economic growth has amounted to about 7%. Our experience is a testament that with the right viewpoint, with a political will and good governance, even smaller countries with restricted resources could attain great economic results. We believe that cooperation in combating climate change is especially relevant, and it is especially present in the mountain ecosystems. Climate change, the destruction of ecosystems, and pollution disproportionately affect countries located in the mountains. At the initiative of Kyrgyzstan and with the wide support of mountain countries, we're releasing the 5 years of action for the development of mountainous regions for 2023-2027, adopted by the UN General Assembly. Another one of our initiatives is ensuring a new global dialogue on climate change as an annual event within the UN framework on climate change and forming a discussional group for mountain partnerships. Allow me to take this chance to support the initiatives of Kyrgyzstan's side. Ladies and gentlemen, Kyrgyzstan pioneers for just non-discriminatory international world order, common access to the well-being of world economy and modern technologies. External trade should fully serve the sustainable development goals. I believe that working out alternative mechanisms of trans-border payments, new financial instruments, using new digital possibilities, the bettering of payment infrastructure will work towards the growth and effective trade in regional and global scale. Kyrgyzstan is interested in cooperating with the new development bank within financing infrastructural projects, as well as projects of sustainable development, both in BRICS states and in other developing countries, and we hope that its role will continue to grow in order to eradicate poverty, develop infrastructure, and raise our resistance to global challenges. We're ready to share with all those interested participants and partners within our BRICS Plus format. We're ready to share our best experience, to develop digitalization's infrastructural projects in the shift towards a greener economy. Especially high appreciation should be given to the scientific educational cluster of BRICS. We see great perspective in developing culture and art cooperation within this format. We're ready to join the development of this important area and to cultural exchanges. In order to democratize international relations, I would like to share following thoughts. First, in order to ensure stable peace in the interest of future generations, we cannot allow the blockage or the division of states for our own and someone else. Second, we need to increase the effective nature of peace building at the UN to ensure human rights, to reinforce our fight against terrorism, extremism, and the drug circulation. Third, we support the reinforcement of system of multilateralism, which is the strong beating heart of the UN. We have to follow the principles and norms of international law with no exception, especially those enshrined in the UN Charter, as well as those aimed at destroying the imbalance between North and South. Fourth, as a bordering country, Kyrgyzstan considers it especially important to fully support Afghanistan and the Afghan people towards integrating the economy of this country in the regional and international economic processes. We cannot leave Afghanistan in international isolation without outside help. Fifth, we call upon the international community to support the development of countries of Africa, Asia, Latin America, and other smaller countries to work by ensuring economic development, food and energy security, and other events.
Number 6, being a mountainous country at the heart of Central Asia, Kyrgyzstan has been advocating for the universal and comprehensive mountainous development agenda at the global stage. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I'd like to note that we highly appreciate the operation of BRICS Group, and we're ready to contribute to the best of our ability to resolve the above-mentioned and other key issues on the agenda of BRICS. We confirm our aspiration to pursue and consolidate versatile cooperation with all the participating countries. The Republic of Kyrgyzstan states that it is interested to work closely hand in hand with BRICS nations and is determined to jointly develop bonds of friendship for the benefit of our peoples. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Your Excellency, Mr. President, you have mentioned the right is might, or the fist right, as it's also called, well, applied by some nations in economic or political affairs. It causes the backlash, the backfire. So, and that would, consolidate the use of the fist, the right of fist. But BRICS advocates for improving the status of international law instead. With regards to Afghanistan and mountainous nations and their susceptibility to climate change, we know about your concerns, and we mentioned that on many occasions, and we also talked about that with the President of Tajikistan, to whom I'd like to give the floor now. The countries adjacent to Afghanistan acutely feel what has been happening in this region and around that country. Over to President of Tajikistan, Mr. Rahmon.
Excellency Vladimir Vladimirovich, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Delegations, United Nations Secretary General, I would like to begin by expressing gratitude to the President of the Russian Federation, His Excellency Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, for taking the initiative to hold our meeting. In light of the current international situation, I believe that the theme of our meeting today, building a better world together, is particularly relevant. It seems clear that the goal it set forth can be achieved only by strengthening equal government-to-government cooperation and by encouraging our countries to work together to build a more fair world order. At the same time, we should take the necessary measures in line with our commitment to the universally recognized norms and principles of international law. In light of the pressing global challenges, there is a need to consolidate our efforts to ensure enduring peace, overall security, genuine stability and sustainable development. Accordingly, during the recent session of the United Nations General Assembly, I proposed the international community to adopt a special resolution entitled "A Decade of Strengthening Peace for Future Generations." We earnestly seek and count on your support of this initiative. Today we are witnessing contradictory geopolitical processes. Along with this, we observe the rise of threats posed by international terrorism, extremism, radicalism, cybercrime, trafficking in narcotics and weapon smuggling, along with different forms of cross-border organized crime. These challenges can effectively be addressed only if we have clear and coherent strategy. Tajikistan has consistently advocated for enhanced collaboration with all international partners in addressing these threats and challenges. To achieve these objectives, the country is actively engaged in promoting multilateral cooperation on counter-terrorism and its financing within the framework of the Dushanbe process. Dear colleagues, Tajikistan is monitoring with deep concern the developments in the Middle East and the escalation of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, which has regrettably resulted in significant casualties among civilians. We urge all parties involved to exercise restraint and to take immediate actions aimed at restoring stability and security in this region. We, in this context, emphasized the necessity of implementing the resolution of the United Nations Security Council on the establishment of an independent and sovereign state of Palestine within the borders of 1967. We firmly believe that any disputes, conflicts and disagreements can be resolved through political and diplomatic means. Furthermore, the effects of climate change have introduced another layer of problems. The increasing frequency of natural disasters related to climate change has resulted in significant loss of life and forced us to allocate considerable resources to mitigate their consequences. In Central Asia, the phenomenon of warming is leading to a reduction in the area of glaciers, which are a primary source of water resources in the region. In accordance with the UN General Assembly resolution, our country intends to hold a high-level international conference on glaciers preservation in Dushanbe in May 2025. We extend an invitation to your countries to participate in this important event. In these contexts, drought represents one of the most pressing global challenges, exerting a detrimental deep effect on all our countries, including the Central Asian region. Dear colleagues, instability in the global environment exerts a direct influence on the socio-economic growth of developing countries. We are often facing increasing disruptions in production and supply chains, as well as food shortage. As a landlocked mountainous country, Tajikistan is keen of the sound progress of its trade and economic partners and committed to expand cooperation with all of them. It is of paramount importance to take practical steps towards a genuine transition to a green economy, with green energy representing a key component. We have set ourselves the ambitious goal of completing this transition by the year 2037. We all well remember the recent COVID-19 pandemic that deeply affected the globe. The most important lesson we derive from this global crisis, in my view, is that no nation, irrespective of its level of development, is immune from the spread of such dangerous diseases. In light of these, there is an only way that we should foster a broad partnership to improve the quality of healthcare, make sure that new innovative methods for disease prevention and treatment are accessible to all. Distinguished colleagues, it is our conviction that only through comprehensive and active engagement we can ensure conducive living conditions for future generations in our shared home called planet Earth. The principal key of attaining this laudable objective is continued promotion of a dialogue among civilizations, and we must strive for greater mutual understanding and respect among diverse communities, facilitate growth and mutual enhancement of our distinctive, unique natural cultures, and building truly friendly relationships. In conclusion, I'd like to note that in terms of influence on global processes and in terms of potential, the countries of the global south are fully capable to mobilize efforts for the sake of building a better world together. I thank you for your attention, and I thank His Excellency Vladimir Putin for his kind and generous invitation to take part in this very important event. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. President. You have heeded the glaciers, indeed, for such countries as Tajikistan, Afghanistan and others. It is a major issue because the ice caps keep thawing and they constitute a source of water supply. And also you mentioned the sanitation, healthcare standards, quality, fight against epidemics, and medical assistance are very important for humanitarian development. And here, any restrictions would be unacceptable, as well as sanctions motivated by politics. And unfortunately, this happens sometimes. And BRICS' main objective is to establish interaction in this respect so that all the nations could enjoy the benefits of sanitation, healthcare and epidemic struggle. Over to the Prime Minister of Vietnam, please, Your Excellency.
Your Excellency President Vladimir Putin, Excellency leaders, distinguished delegates, I would like to sincerely thank President Putin for inviting Vietnam to participate in the BRICS outreach. And thank you for your cordial welcome for us in Kazan. I wish to congratulate the Russian Federation and President Putin on your exemplary leadership as the BRICS chair in 2024. Over the past 2 decades, BRICS has asserted a significant role as an important mechanism for close cooperation, sustainable development, and effective resolutions of the common challenges facing humanity. BRICS has inspired and motivated the Global South countries, including Vietnam, on our development path. Distinguished delegates, the world is entering a new era, the era of extensive connectivity and integration, the era of smart technology and innovation. However, humanity confronts unprecedented challenges such as climate change, resource depletion, aging population, geopolitical instability, and the rising tide of inequality and division. These global issues require collective action from all countries, guided by a global, whole of people, and comprehensive approach, and the upholding of multilateralism and international solidarity. To build a world order based on regulation and international laws, to share responsibilities and to act based on principles for peace and prosperity. In this new era, BRICS should embody the strong bonds among nations, particularly among developing ones. In this spirit, I would like to propose 5 strategic connectivities for BRICS and the international community to jointly build a better world as follows. First, resources connectivity. With its growing economic potential, BRICS should take the lead in mobilizing, allocating, and utilizing resources to adapt to climate change, further advance green economy, digital economy, and circular economy, to ensure food security, energy security, and information security. Vietnam welcomes and would like to thank the new Development Bank for expanding its beneficiaries and finance 2 strategic projects in BRICS and developing nations. Second, strategic infrastructure connectivity. Connections between BRICS and developing countries are in both physical and digital form. We are not only connected through transportation, roads, railways, airways and seaports, but also through digital infrastructure, data sharing and connectivity, as well as the robust promotion of e-commerce and the global digital economy. Third, global supply chains connectivity based on the application of modern science, technology, and innovation. Thus, we will create new momentum for economic growth, at the same time expanding the room for development for all nations and diversifying manufacturing, products, and markets. Fourth, people-to-people connectivity. Cooperation in culture, education, training, tourism, and people-to-people exchange between BRICS and other nations should be further strengthened to foster a cultural space of unity in diversity, where different values are respected, similarities are multiplied, and the beauty of friendship and cooperation is cultivated and nurtured. As the great Russian writer Dostoevsky noted, beauty will save the world. Fifth, connectivity in reforming global governance mechanisms toward connectedness, sharing, digitalization, balance, fairness, effectiveness, inclusiveness, and comprehensiveness to develop rapidly and sustainably. We should be more proactive and effectively engaged in shaping global rules and standards, particularly in emerging areas such as governance, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and the Internet of Things, among others. BRICS should take stronger actions in the fight against the trend of protectionism and the politicization of relations in economy, science, technology, and innovation. Excellencies, leaders, distinguished delegates, connectivity and integration to build a better world together is the consistent policy of Vietnam, which is accompanied by three major viewpoints. Number one, placing people at the center, at the subjects, the goals, motivation, and the most important resource for development, and not sacrificing social progress, social security, and environmental protection for mere economic growth. Number two, being determined to the foreign policy of independence, self-reliance, multilateralization, and diversification of external relations, being a good friend, a reliable partner, an active and responsible member of the international community for peace, cooperation, and development in the region and the world. And number three, adopting a four-nose defense policy, no military alliance, no allying with one country to act against another country, no use of Vietnamese territory by a foreign country to act against another country, and no use or threat of force in international relations. Excellency leaders, Russian renowned writer Maxim Gorky once highlighted, each nation, each country is an indispensable part of the great human body, and only together we can achieve true progress. In that spirit, I am confident that BRICS will be more united and maximize its inherent strengths to collectively build a world of peace, stability, and development. Our President Ho Chi Minh, the world's cultural figure and Vietnam's national hero, asserted, unity, unity, great unity. Success, success, great success. Vietnam stands ready to work with BRICS and the international community to realize the idea of building a better world together. Once again, I would like to congratulate President Putin for the success of this BRICS Summit in Kazan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Prime Minister. You have mentioned a number of very interesting points, but I'd like to flag one in particular. You mentioned the shared values of the BRICS nations. This is true. We treat the participating countries' traditions with respect, as well as the creeds typical of these nations and the cultures. That all of these underlie our success. Thank you very much, and I with pleasure yield to President of Turkmenistan, Mr. Berdimuhamedov. Your Excellency, floor is yours.
Thank you. Distinguished heads of state, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'd like to thank the President of the Russian Federation, the esteemed Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, for the hospitality and, of course, the warm welcoming. Turkmenistan is participating in the BRICS Summit Plus outreach for the first time. We thank you for the invitation to such a representative event, and we see this as a sign of respect towards Turkmenistan. As is known, Turkmenistan takes an active part in the efforts of the international community aimed at achieving and affirming the principles of cooperation, mutual respect, and consideration of interests in the world. Our country used its neutral status to advance the peacekeeping agenda, ensure global and regional security, foster a culture of equal dialogue, trust, and predictability in interstate relations. An essential component of Turkmenistan's foreign policy is the application of the neutrality model and preventive diplomacy tools to prevent conflict situations and eliminate their underlying causes. We are convinced that in the current conditions, the basic principles of neutrality are objectively in demand, and with the support of the international community can bring real benefits in ensuring global security. As a responsible state, in this regard, our country has put forward several significant prospects, and we considered important the headquarters in Ashgabat, International Center for Preventive Diplomacy Regional Center, and of course Turkmenistan, in this regard, proposed a number of measures aimed at normalizing and improving the international situation and transitioning to constructive parameters of interaction. In this regard, our country has put forward several significant proposals at the UN, such as the development of a global security strategy, the initiative to grant neutral countries the status of priority UN partners in its peacekeeping efforts, as well as a number of proposals in the context of creating and strengthening regional security and stability. A landmark event in this context was a unanimous support by the UN General Assembly of Turkmenistan's initiative to declare the next year, 2025, the International Year of Peace and Trust. We expect that all states will actively participate in implementing the provisions of corresponding General Assembly resolution. Turkmenistan's international strategy is based on the country's involvement in modern geo-economic trends, proactive participation in solving pressing problems of our time, achieving sustainable development goals, overcoming crises in the environmental and food sectors, creating and ensuring reliable and fair access for countries and peoples to energy sources, clean water and air. For this purpose, our state also acts from an active and responsible position. I would like to draw your attention to Turkmenistan's initiatives in the field of economy, energy, and sustainable transport. In particular, we are talking about the development of the Global Framework Program for the transition to a circular economy. Other initiatives include the creation of a global atlas of sustainable transport connectivity and the Alliance for Global Energy Security and Sustainable Development. In general, speaking about the current global geoeconomic trends, Turkmenistan highlights one of their defining problems, the increasing importance of developing countries. They are largely expected to bring new energy to the established, yet in need of constructive revision, former world order frameworks, and to introduce new meanings and purposes. The key component here should be the alignment of the levels of scientific and technological development of states, digitalization and innovative standards, the unconditional priority of environmental criteria in the economy, trade, transport, industry, extraction and processing of raw materials, and a number of other areas. We intend to consistently achieve these goals. A few words about the climate agenda. It is obvious that it will become a key issue and will shape the trajectory of human development throughout this century. Turkmenistan advocates a systematic consideration of climate issues as one of the fundamental components of the global approach to ensuring the architecture of security and development, the creation of multilateral mechanisms for monitoring and responding to climate, environmental and man-made disasters. In matters of environmental cooperation, Turkmenistan gives priority to the protection and preservation of the natural landscape in Central Asia, marine resources and biodiversity in the Caspian Sea, and the rational use of water and water energy resources in these regions, taking into account the interests of partners and universally recognized norms of international law. We attach great importance to international cooperation in the humanitarian sphere, including resolving the problems of refugees and stateless persons. In recent years, Turkmenistan has established good cooperation in these matters with the UN, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and a number of specialized institutions, which has led to significant positive results at the national level. We are ready to share our accumulated experience and best practices with other countries. Our country also considers it's important to give necessary impetus to cooperation in the cultural, scientific and educational spheres, cultural exchange and the mutual understanding of traditions and unique arts as a beneficial process designed to create strong spiritual and value-based bonds, uniting nations on a sound and constructive foundation. We are ready to establish such interaction with partners and participate in the development of relevant plans for joint activities. Dear participants, once again, I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation to participate in this meeting and for the opportunity to speak and share views and proposals. In conclusion, let me express my gratitude to the organizers of the forum for creating conditions and environment for successful and productive work. I thank you for attention.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, you have also noted multiple interesting issues, but I would like to emphasize specifically the need to eradicate the root causes of crises in order to eliminate them, and I fully support this stance. It is a fundamental issue. It is the top priority in addressing any crisis, including in overcoming difficult situations that we see worldwide and that have been mentioned today during the discussion. You have also touched upon your efforts in the United Nations. We often mentioned the activities of this organization. There are a lot of challenges and issues as we see the world evolving, and the entities that have been created decades ago must evolve together with the world. But with all the questions remaining, there is no other universal single organization in the world. And hence, I would like to give the floor to Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Guterres. You have the floor.
Mr. President, distinguished leaders and representatives, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. I am grateful to participate in the 16th BRICS Summit. Collectively, your countries represent nearly half of the world's population. And I salute your valuable commitment and support for multilateralism and international problem solving as clearly reflected in your team this year. No single group and no single country can act alone or in isolation. It takes a community of nations working as one global family to address global challenges. Challenges like the rising number of conflicts, the devastation of climate change, pollution and biodiversity loss, rising inequalities and lingering poverty and hunger, a debt crisis that threatens smoother plans for the future of many vulnerable countries, the fact that fewer than 1/5 of the Sustainable Development Goals are on track, a growing digital divide, and the lack of guardrails for artificial intelligence and other frontier technologies, and the lack of representation of voice for developing countries at global decision-making tables, from the Security Council to the Bretton Woods system and beyond. These must change. September's UN Summit of the Future offered a roadmap for strengthening multilateralism and advancing peace, sustainable development, and human rights. I see 4 areas for action. First, finance. Today's international financial system is not offering many vulnerable countries the safety net or level of support they need. The Pact for the Future calls for accelerating the reform of the international financial architecture that is outdated, ineffective, and unfair. It includes a commitment to move forward with an SDG stimulus, to change the business model and substantially increase the lending capacity of multilateral development banks and their concessional funding to developing countries in vulnerable conditions, to recycle more special drawing rights, to restructure loans for countries drowning in debt, and to mobilize more international and domestic resources, public and private, for vital investments in developing countries. Next year's Conference on Financing for Development and the Summit on Social Development are two milestones to carry these efforts forward. And we must also recognize the importance of South-South cooperation. It doesn't replace the commitments and obligations of developed countries, but it is providing a growing contribution to supporting developing countries in overcoming obstacles to achieving the SDGs. Second, climate. Every country has committed to limit temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. That requires dramatic action to reduce emissions now, with the G20 in the lead. COP29 is just weeks away, and that starts the clock for countries to produce new nationally determined contribution plans with the 2035 targets that are aligned with the 1.5 degree goal. And COP29 must deliver an ambitious and credible outcome on the new climate finance goal. And developed countries must also keep promises to double adaptation finance and ensure meaningful contributions to the loss and damage fund, what was not the case when it was created. Third, technology. Every country must be able to access the benefits of technology. The Global Digital Compact commits to enhanced global cooperation and capacity building. It includes the first truly universal agreement on the international governance of artificial intelligence to give every country a seat at the AI table. It calls for an independent international scientific panel on AI and initiating a global political dialogue on its governance within the United Nations with the participation of all countries. And it requests options for innovative financing for AI capacity building in developing countries. And fourth, peace. We must strengthen and update the machinery of peace. This includes reforms to make the United Nations Security Council reflective of today's world. The Pact for the Future includes important steps on disarmament, including the first multilateral agreement on nuclear disarmament in more than a decade, and steps that address the weaponization of outer space and use of lethal autonomous weapons. Across the board, we need peace. We need peace in Gaza, with an immediate ceasefire, the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages, the effective delivery of humanitarian aid without obstacles, and we need to make irreversible progress to end the occupation and establish the two-state solution as it was recently reaffirmed once again by a UN General Assembly resolution. We need peace in Lebanon, with an immediate cessation of hostilities, moving to the full implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701. We need peace in Ukraine, a just peace in line with UN Charter, international law, and General Assembly resolutions. We need peace in Sudan, with all parties silencing their guns and committing to a path towards sustainable peace. Those were the messages I have delivered to the high-level segment of the General Assembly in September in New York. Unfortunately, they remain valid here and now. Everywhere, we must uphold the values of the UN Charter, the rule of law, and the principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and political independence of all states. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Summit of the Future charted a course to strengthen multilateralism for global development and security. Now, we must turn words into deeds, and we believe BRICS can play a very important role in this direction. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, Secretary General, you have mentioned we all should represent one big family. Your Excellency, Secretary General, that's how we live. In families, unfortunately, there are disagreements, scandals, division of property, even reaching a fight at times. The point of BRICS is to create necessary mechanisms for interaction, to create conducive conditions in our common home. This is our effort. This is what we're going to do in close coordination, among others, with the United Nations Organization. Colleagues, friends. Now we have a short recess, and we will continue thereafter in the format of the working breakfast.